presenting today. It looks as if we're still slowly adding a couple more people. I apologize, but we'll wait for about 2 or 3 extra minutes and then we'll get started. I don't want to delay too much because we do have a lot to talk about. However, let's have some fun here. Let's go ahead and start just in about 3 minutes here, and then we'll get going. Thanks for your patience, everybody. We'll talk to you in just a few minutes. And good day, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. Our webinar, The Road to Project Manager, is hosted by Easy Certifications, the company that provides many expert training, certification programs, and support. We'll talk more about that, but today let's talk about the topic you're here for. Before we get started, let's actually work out how we're going to work together on this. You'll find out that I'm a very collaborative presenter and trainer, and so if you have questions throughout this, you'll notice that I have muted because we are being recorded. It works best if all the attendees are muted. However, please use chat extensively. I'm very comfortable integrating your questions in with the material, and if you have specific questions, that somebody else on this webinar will have the same question, and if it doesn't fit that I talk to your question immediately. We'll hold it off to the end of the session. I will have time at the end of the session, and we may even extend this session if you have further questions, both about project management and the credential I represent, as well as other general questions in this area. Okay, enough of the ground rules and logistics. We'll communicate through chat, and we'll go through this material together. By the way, this is me. That's a 2-year-old picture of me. That's probably, I guess I put in a little more exercise than I used to. But my name is Tim, and I've been preparing people for the project management professional credential for about 13 years now. I started in 2004. I got my credential in 2003. And I've updated content many times. Internal to the corporation I was working with, I did that once. I was teaching probably about 200 people every 3 or 4 months inside my corporation in preparing for the PMP, and that was back in mid-2000s. I actually am very active now publicly, presenting on several topics and teaching. And I've been also a very active participant in my local professional chapter, my local project management community, both as a mentor as well as a trainer and a volunteer myself. Today, we're going to talk about what a project manager is, and to build the context around project management as well. It's a unique job, because many corporations say that project management is really valuable, except they don't even have a job title, project manager. How does that work? Also, how do you become an expert as a project manager? How do you grow? There are formal university courses, there's formal corporate training. We can get training outside. But some of us just open books and we learn by example and by mistake how to become what we call an expert. And anyway, what is an expert project manager? We'll talk more about that in that section. And then, as we declare ourselves publicly experts, what are the responsibilities we have to contributing back? With my credential, there are some very understood and communicated expectations about what we are to do once we become experts. And then, what about the next thing? You're an expert, what, after 5 or 8 years of focused, intentional effort in studying and doing the work? What does this mastery mean? Have you ever been around a project manager who has been a 30-year expert? It's amazing what those people have, the wealth of knowledge and their ability to share that knowledge. We have a lot to talk about, so let's start putting a lot of this in context. And by the way, I may be checking the chat log here once or twice. I generally hear it in my ear, but if I don't hear anything, I'll expect that there are questions anyway. So anyway, let's talk about what Tim calls a project manager. First of all, there's a community. It's been a formal volunteer organization, nonprofit organization, since the early to mid 1960s, called the Project Management Institute, and they established what project management is across all industries. You know, what does a project manager do, regardless of whether they work in healthcare or in construction or finance or any industry? What does a project manager do, and what are their responsibilities? They established that. Not only did they establish it, but about 1984, they actually established publicly a credential that represents the experience of an individual, 3 to 5 years or even up to 8 years of experience that a project manager should have, along with knowledge, and confidence. The test that they have for the project management professional credential is 4 hours long, 200 questions deep, and it's tricky. It actually doesn't just ask you for knowledge, it asks you how to apply that knowledge. These questions force you to take what you have and solve very complicated problems that are very like what you experience in the real world. This is the credential I prepare people for, and it takes generally about 6 to 8 weeks to prepare, even if you have 5 years of experience. Why? Because the credential goes across all industries, and it talks a lot about not just creating a deliverable, but what's the authority of a project manager? What is the responsibilities? Who owns failure with the project manager? Who owns failure in communication? Those type of things. You have to understand that in order to prepare for this type of a test. So, project, and let's actually define a couple things here really quickly, right? I'm going to jump out of the presentation. When I see a fence in the middle of a road or in the middle of a field, I want to climb over that fence. So let's do this. Let's talk about a project, okay? What is it? It's unique, never been done before, and has specific time boundaries, right? Beginning and end. You know when it's going to start, you know when it's going to end. And it's never been done before. So that's the project. Now, in order to manage these, you have to have a specific set of skills. And that's what a project manager has and does. Let's just say management here so we can talk about the skills. Set of tools, processes, skills, and what do they do? Yeah, help you manage things that are unique and time-bound, which means you're going to have to be really good at estimating. You're going to have to be really good at planning, and you're going to have to be really good at something called variance analysis, which means you're going to determine we're off plan and we have to figure out how to get back on plan. Control, change control are a big part of project management. Now, with that in mind, how do we become project managers? Every project manager I've talked to has said one thing or another, but mostly, right there, it's the font's a little faint, but it's by accident. And I don't just pull this stuff together, right? I do research, and I have a couple documents that I've referenced in the back of this presentation, and you'll find the title of these documents. But one of these research documents say talent is often assigned based on availability rather than specific skills or expertise. That means when a company needs a project done, they don't look for a project manager. They look at who's available. So you actually had this career picked for you partly because you were available and you were assigned that work because you were ready to pick up extra work. But also, there is some training involved. And 53% of the companies surveyed in this one report, and I'll show you the name at the end of it, said classroom, self-paced course, or combination. Over half of companies actually provide that for people who do this type of work. They may or may not call them project managers, but they still provide some training that helps them approach work that's never been done before and is bounded by time. Not only that, but some of us, because we're project managers, do our analysis and say, boy, if I was good at this, this would open doors for me. this would give me a better chance at getting a better career, a better job, and better pay. And this actually set us on the road. Those are the three ways that I've found, and through my research, analysis, and by interviewing, project managers become project managers. Now, a big part of this is the fact that we do have skills, innate. We're comfortable with risk. We're comfortable with doing things outside a process because unique things don't have procedure manuals. But for the most part, we're available. We may have had training or not, and we set ourselves on that path. Now, one thing that we do know, and as project managers we've learned this, that we have a better chance of hitting the job we want, the career we want, by planning and also following that plan and staying with it. From a tactical standpoint, what are the next steps? What are the next steps? What are the next steps? From a business and a strategic standpoint, what's the value of me becoming a project manager? And understanding that and using that as our motivation. And then also, from a leadership standpoint, taking charge of our own, isn't that weird? A leadership of our own career, active management, active participation in the direction we're carrying our careers. Those are the things that guarantee, have a greater guarantee towards us getting what we want out of our jobs and out of our careers. This is how we did it. This is how people become project managers. Now, becoming an expert. I'm finding more and more that the credential itself actually establishes expertise. If you are in martial arts, right, how long does it take you to get your first degree black belt? What, 5.5, 6.5 years? That's about the same time that you're expected to participate leading and directing projects before you're allowed to take the test. Isn't that an interesting fact? On top of that, the credential itself tests your knowledge and your ability to apply that knowledge in solving very sticky problems. That actually establishes expertise. Not only that, but professional and practical and personal application. When you get your credential, you have a certain level of expertise, but in order to keep that credential, you're required to continue to develop your business acumen, develop your leadership skills, develop your technical project management skills. Continued professional development is a requirement, and it's not just education, but it's also volunteering, being a mentor. You have to do this in order to retain your credential, or you'll have to take the test again. If you do this, PMI says you never have to take the test again. That's how we become and grow our experts. Now, what's interesting is, as we grow and develop our expertise, it doesn't just open up opportunities for us as project managers, but it opens up all sorts of areas. If we want to have our own organization within a company, being a project manager is really a neat and easy way to learn the skills. An organization, or opening up a new product. If you're part of a production or manufacturing company, being a product owner is very prestigious and it's very critical. Being a project manager actually helps you learn the skills that are required. And some of us who wish to not just be tied down to one company, but to advise and consult with multiple companies, professional services. Wouldn't it be neat to have a job that could actually help you bridge between what you're doing now and hanging up your own shingle or becoming part of a professional services company. Project management is that. Becoming an expert in project management opens up all of these different areas. Let me check here for any questions. Okay, we're doing well. And again, guys, I'm very open to questions as we go through this. And this material is a little bit of personal experience, but again, it's a lot of research I've done over the last 2 or 3 years, and specifically research for these numbers and this information here. Now, it doesn't just stop there, okay? We don't just want to become experts, and in fact, I showed where PMI requires, once you have your PMP, PMI expects that you are an expert. And guess what? They say if you want to maintain this credential, part of what you have to do is mentor other people. This is what happens, especially as we hit year 5 to 8 of our project management careers. As a PMP, we are required, we're under oath, we take an oath. In order to apply for the PMP credential, you have to accept an oath, and that oath has to do with honesty. You know, a lot of the moral and ethical equivalents of going to work for another company. But also, it says that we also commit to supporting other project managers in their growth. Now, it doesn't just extend to other project managers. It extends to all of our stakeholders on our projects, all of our communities. In many ways, the oath and the credential extends not just as a professional credential and oath, but actually a whole life credential and oath. I was a scout leader in Scouts in the United States for many, many years. And one old scoutmaster, he started being a scoutmaster in the early 1960s, and he mentored me. And he said that, you know, kids are just like everybody else in the world. There are moments that you can teach them, moments you can't, but there are moments, and you look for those teachable moments. The greatest project manager mentors I had were ones who noticed that I was interested in something, and they pounced on it. They called these teachable moments. And they, one of them was talking to me about contracts, and he said, he was great. He was like, for those of you who grew up in the 1960s, you know My Three Sons, Uncle Charlie, who was a retired merchant marine. He was gruff and grumbly, but he saw I was interested. I was working over some reports and formal documentation for this project I was supporting. He said, Tim, you know that there's a lot of risk here. And what do you do for risk? You outsource it, right? Give it to somebody else. Insurance. Why don't you just throw money at the problem, and that takes care of the risk? Solve it simply. He knew I was ready for that. Teachable moments. That's what we do as project managers. We look for teachable moments around all of us. Also, best methods. We learn when we study for the PMP that the objective of saving time and saving money and also minimizing risk is finding successful approaches and applying them all over the world. And this is called best methods. It's the way companies become efficient, you know, continual improvement, quality. It's best method. Harvesting them, sharing them, and applying them everywhere they're applicable. And that leads us into continuous improvement itself. We continue to refine our own abilities, and we work with our project teams and our project team members continuously improve. Not just the teachable moments, but we learn and understand groups of people as well as individuals, and we lead that group through its progression. We study this in human resource management, the Tuckman model, how teams form, storm, norm, and perform. And we learn, even in storming, there is opportunity, because only in conflict can we get people to agree and to commit, and we get everybody talking, and that's where innovation happens. Best methods, continuous improvement, this is all part of becoming an expert project manager. One last thing about continuous improvement. Throughout all of project management, it astounds me that one of the things that we still address is the need business has for people who capture data and are able to validate that this is good and right data, and then apply proper analysis in order to make good, sound statements. Executive management, businesses, organizations need people like this, and in project management we actually learn these skills and tools, and we learn how valuable we can be, not just in projects, but in helping businesses make sound decisions. Some of the greatest experiences I have were on a project with Fortune 50s, major corporations who have been around for 150 years, and these had refined not just how they do business, but even how they made decisions over generations of leaders. And they were looking for people, like a project manager, who knew how to gather data, analyze, put that data in context, and provide them information, and they did it really well. This is when you understand the real value of project management and project managers, when you're able to impact business. Like I said, you don't stop at being an expert. Now, we may leave project management behind. We may be a business manager. We may have maybe a marketing manager or even a marketing engineer or something else, but project management stays with us forever. That credential impacts everything we do, professionally and personally. Now, mastery is another interesting topic, and we usually in our careers don't have a chance to talk about this. We don't share. Why? Because we don't stay with the same group of people for 20 to 40 years anymore. What is it? Every 2 years you need to be shifting your job. If you're not doing that, you're becoming stagnant. We don't get to talk about mastery. Well, if you have a professional organization and a bunch of people committed to something like this outside of business, you have an opportunity to talk to people who not only can talk about mastery, but also can support you in your gaining mastery. And again, with this first bullet, this is what we're talking about. Not just understanding these fundamentals, and being an expert, let's admit it, is understanding the fundamentals. In martial arts, you're a first-degree black belt. Well, compare that to a fifth-degree black belt. It's the same thing. It's employing or applying fundamentals with expertise. We talk about this in major corporations. You talk about this and you say, to your peers, does this project management job need a $40 an hour project manager? A $75 an hour project manager, a $125 an hour project manager? What's the difference between those two? It's how they employ the fundamentals with expertise. They know not just the tools, but how to get the most use out of the tools for each situation. Not only that, but also mastery means broadening these fundamentals. A phrase that I learned in one corporation I advised, deep, crazy skills. We learned that in a primarily functional organization, one that uses projects and project management, but they exist primarily to provide a function back. In functional organizations, people stick around long enough to develop these deep, crazy skills? Well, that's part of becoming a master project manager. Some of these deep, crazy skills are in estimation, are in planning, in managing risk, in managing requirements. There's even earned value, which is basically using data to make project management decisions. In major projects, in critical and long-term projects, the federal government requires earned value, and there are people who built their entire careers around this. Deep, crazy skills. That's becoming a master project manager. There's also some term called finesse or extreme delicacy. I got this definition about 3 or 4 years ago, and I love it. Extreme delicacy or subtlety in action. You know, somebody who walks in the room, and it's not charisma. Charisma and charm's different. That's where everybody says, oh, everything's going to fall into place. Glad they're there, right? That's charisma and charm, okay? That's referent authority. What I'm talking about is people, just by how they're nudging things or they're using certain words and phrases, gentle, small changes that make deep impact. You've been around people like that. People are very comfortable and confident, but they know how to use the tools with extreme capability. That's finesse. That's mastery. And that's what we're talking about. And if you're comparing an expert to a master, that's the difference. It's confidence. As a PMP, there's a huge level of confidence because you have publicly demonstrated your capabilities. Finesse, on the other hand, has to do with that extra. You know, you've played with these tools for so many years. You've worked with so many different types of people. You've worked in so many different types of environments. You know exactly the approach, when to do it, how to do it, and with what capability to do it. These are fun people to work with, and I do invite you to look for these people within your environment and find out, not to ask them questions, but just to observe them and see the difference between what a 5-year project manager is and a 20-year project or a 30-year project manager. They know stuff. Okay. Now, that's the extent of my material. I can talk a lot more about this. One of the topics that one of the materials I did use in pulling this together, let's see here, was talent management. And this talks about how do you grow your expertise, not just to pass a test, but actually to get more enjoyment out of your career. The Reich report, if you look this up, they give a lot of good analysis in every industry. But I was looking at project management, and the most current statistics they have is in 2015, and that's where I was finding out this 53% of companies surveyed. They constantly survey these companies, and they find out, okay, how do you teach? What do you provide? What information? And what value are you seeing out of it? Good. For those of you who are doing this type of research, both of those sources are great. Project Management Institute does the same type of surveys, but generally they focus just on project management. Okay, I've talked a lot about the life of a project manager and how they approach becoming an expert and what to expect once you have your PMP for the next 15 to 25 years of your life. Before we go into a question and answer session, let me spend a few minutes here. Real quickly, our host, Easy Certifications, are a great training company. They wanted to announce a new model and a new approach to training. And basically they provide what's called a season pass, which opens up preparation for not just the PMP certification, but Agile and Program Management Professional, as well as Microsoft Project itself. One of the main tools you'll have as you're learning to becoming an expert manager in both scheduling and control. Also, in preparing for Six Sigma, in a lot of environments, Six Sigma and project management go hand in hand. Six Sigma has an operational improvement part, but they also have improvement within projects and how to apply quality controls in projects. The dual credentials are, it's a no-brainer if you understand that. And again, if you want to jump on this early, this actually they actually have a great discount. Reach out to through email, through the web, or even directly by phone, and they'll be able to give you much more information. What I'd like to do right now is to continue this discussion. Before I go further in depth, do you have any questions on what I've just presented? I know I went through this really fast. Project management and preparing for the PMP exam, I expect many of you are in that position of, is this credential for me, or how do I explore, and what can I expect in preparing? Others of you may be thinking about project management as a career itself. One of the things I did not bring into this discussion, and I could talk about for a few minutes, is the viability of the project management role. A lot of the Project Management Institute, or PMI's research, looks out to about 2020, okay? And they look for, based on what corporations are telling them and based on what project managers are telling them, they're saying either a double or a triple in need of expert project managers, including up to and including 2020, and it's not going to go away. A lot of the literature inside of PMI and outside of PMI, however, are saying that this role, just like middle management inside of companies, could very well go away. But that role is still critical, and it's expected that this is going to continue to grow as an outsourced skill that companies contract for. That's if you're considering, or if you're in a career project management, please be aware and do your own research, but be aware that this could lead you into consulting. I've been a consultant here since the end of 2012, and I could talk to you about the benefits and the negative parts of that as well. Other questions have to do with becoming an expert itself. One of the things that I did talk about, and I'll continue to talk about, is that the project manager, a requirement for a project manager, to be the one person in the room who says, yep, from the sidewalk it looks like the front of the house is white. I can't tell you what the sides of the house or the back are. They're very literal because their value is being very literal. You cannot say, you can't be an optimistic project manager. You can't be a pessimistic project manager either. What you can be is an analytical one. Based on this information, I'm led to this conclusion. Now, with that in mind, let's remember that we have something over here called assumptions. And these assumptions add a degree of risk to this analysis. We all have to agree on that. Also, we're building this on historical information. Here are the things that could change in the future. And if we incorporate that change, it's going to lead us to another decision. As project managers, we learn not just the skills and the tools, but we also learn how to work with people in order to have these discussions. This is interpersonal skills. You also have another set of skills called managerial skills. You're introduced to it when you're attaining your PMP. You master this for the next 25 years. It's called managerial skills, and it's not just leading a project team, okay? Interpersonal skills have to do with how do you work with people to develop them into a team, and how do you develop that team through its forming and storming and norming, its optimal behavior, and how can you get the most out of that team. That's all interpersonal skills. With managerial skills, this is in stakeholder management, you're all of a sudden going in a whole different direction. You're learning to lead and influence. You're actually working with executive management. You're saying things in such a way that CXOs want to listen to you. It takes time to build this skill. You understand them with your PMP, but it's going to take the next 10 or 15 years to build that ability. Now, with that in mind, this career leads you in a direction of not just speaking to and supporting executive management, but opening the door to executive management. More and more people are saying, this is what got me on the path to becoming a senior manager. I do want to speak a little bit more to becoming a mentor. And this is part of mastery. Just like in martial arts, once we have our first degree black belts, we're committed to working with other people to get their black belts, to get their initial credential that represents, it's a public statement of expertise. But we continue with mastery. That's the key. And a lot of that mastery is on the bottom square down here, right? We educate not just our project team, not just ourselves, but we also educate all of the people who could impact our projects, who perceive the projects impacting them. We work with them. And I talked about 3 areas, right? Teachable moments, best methods, continuous improvement, but it goes even further than that. If you think about major projects, let's see here. Let me pick one. So you're part of a corporation and you're working with implementation of this huge multi-organizational system. And the system is going to tie purchasing together with decision making, and it actually supports many functional organizations. Before you even start talking to your stakeholders, you want to make sure that they're bought into this idea. Approaching your stakeholders in that size and that huge of a decision for the corporation can take 6 months to a year preparation. And only project managers who participated in this understand the investment required in education and support of all the different people who will be touched by your work. And so that alone gives you the mindset of an executive manager. We're going to have to pave the way to make our project easy. We're going to have to pave the way by investing 6 months in working with everybody who will be impacted. I bid on contracts for 3 years, statewide, federal, global, and one of the questions I always asked was, what's your understanding of the impact of this project to the stakeholders? And I gauged the maturity of the organization and their readiness for this size of a project based on their answer. And a lot of them said, well, we'll talk about that later, which means when they had not gathered their information. This learning this side of project management takes years and years and years. And again, it sets you on the road. Just by getting your PMP, it sets you on the road to that mastery. A lot of it has to do with the confidence. As a PMP, I have a certain level of competence. Oh, good. Lawrence has a question. Let's have fun with this question. Regarding communication with senior management or influencing project stakeholders, is there any advantage to pursuing a program management certification? To what degree companies seeking program managers with respect to project managers? Okay, I'll give you the good and the bad of this, Lawrence. Up until about 2011, 2012, it was my experience that companies many times didn't differentiate between programs and projects. When I talk about programs, let's baseline this. When I talk about programs, it's running a group of projects in an efficient way. Okay? Now, what happens is, if they really understand the difference between projects and programs, now, this is a great education moment for senior management. Now, think about it this way. Another example here, and let me hop out of the presentation because this actually does, this is part of what you learn as a PMP, okay? Let's do it this way. Let's talk about PMOs. Same thing as investment, a corporation's investment in a PMO is like a company's investment in program management as compared to project management. You're not just putting people in place because they're available to get work done. You're actually trying to standardize and centralize so the work is efficient and it makes business sense. That's the key to programs and to PMOs. And that's the trick. If you can actually convert your knowledge of projects and programs as a value to business, then you're speaking executive management's language. As an example, a PMO, Project Management Office. Now, according to PMI, that's what they call. In my company, they were called project management offices, program management offices, interchangeably. There was no formal term. PMI calls them project management offices. Now, what's the value to executive management? If you can actually articulate this, you stand a chance. First of all, centralization and standardization. Great. Basically what that means is there's one way of doing it and it's the most efficient way. Okay? This also means that it's available to more than just one organization. Okay? You take basically, what do you do with a process inside of a company? You centralize it and standardize it, and then in order to maximize its value, what do? You duplicate it, duplicate that. You basically duplicate success, and that's what PMOs do from an executive management standpoint. The other thing is, you don't just centralize and standardize process. You don't just centralize, standardize documentation, using the same templates. You centralize and standardize training. So if I have too many project managers over in marketing and I need a couple in engineering, guess what? I just move them over. With about 3 or 4 days of being around engineers, they know the lingo of engineering and they can do projects over there. See, that's the value of a PMO to executive management. Now, from a project management value, we know what they are, right? What? Basically, go to for organizational process assets. How to get things done, right? How to do things. Also, centralization of archives. Project archives, right? Historical information. Where, go to the PMO and I can find answers to that other project managers have sorted out. A lot of times the PMO also is a really good place to manage resources. Like if I have 7 projects, need 2 cranes each, and I have 5 cranes, I'm going to want the PMO to handle that, right? That makes sense, okay? So, and that's the key right there. It makes sense. Now, we'll also learn that this is a really good reason to have a program around cranes and projects. That's what I would do. I'd wrap a program around it. And that's why project management offices in a lot of companies are called program management offices. Now, let's circle back and get back to your question, okay, Lawrence? There's a huge advantage to translate the value of project management, programs, program management into business terms. So, because remember, executive management is there for the vision. And if you can actually attach the executive vision to project and program management, number one, you basically sealed your success inside the company. Number two, you can easily align your project work with the business objectives that executive management is espousing. Your work now is critical. That's the beautiful thing. That's why you want to align your work with that. That's why you want to learn to talk business value as a project manager. A lot of the things when you learn project management and prepare for the PMP is learn to interpret project value. What do? Return on investment, payback period, internal rate of return. Why do we have to learn these silly things? Because this is how executive management speaks. If we can actually articulate in their terminology, they get it. Now, we're actually doing a service. First of all, we're taking the vision of executive management and transporting that to our project team for motivation. This is team, this is why we're doing this work, because we're actually part of this neat thing that our company's doing. And then we're taking our team's work and interpreting that into the value to the company back to executive management. And we're saying executive management, this is why we're doing this project. This is the value. Now, let's take this out of context of the project management. Guess what your general managers are doing every day? Guess what your director, guess what your vice presidents are doing every day? The same thing. By preparing for the PMP, you are preparing yourself to enter where the business decisions are made. Okay? We call it decision making in projects because this is a business decision. Business does not have money for everything. They have to decide to do it here or to do it there. Pick project A or project B. And if we actually understand how to articulate our project's value in the language of executive management, our projects, our work, and our success stands a greater chance. How's that for an answer? Yeah, PMP doesn't just help you in understanding and being able to articulate, but it opens the door for you to actually participate as a peer. Isn't that cool? I've, as a project manager, I will say that I've said some awful stupid things to CIOs with eight-figure salaries, and I've seen the look. They were dumbfounded, and then all of a sudden a light bulb went off in their heads. That's when I got the value of a project manager and a project management credential to executive management. Okay, more questions? By the way, program management is great. PGMP through PMI, program management professional, a lot of people still don't have that. It's still you know, a little bit rare. Now, what's interesting is the PMP. If you read the details, the PMP is a test and it's a proof of your experience and expertise, right? With a PGMP, you actually put like a dissertation board for a master's or a doctoral board, and you work with them, and they all agree that you're a program manager to a certain extent. There's also an exam, but it is actually a publicly recognized mastery. Why? Think about it. As a program manager, you're that much closer to business than as a project manager. You're gaining efficiencies from grouping project managers. You're telling one project manager, now, I'm not talking about you're the boss of project managers. It's a different role. There's no hierarchy. But you're telling one project manager, slow down a little bit here. The crane will be ready for you next week. And you're telling the other project managers, speed up so that we can release that crane for next week. And you're playing at a higher level, but you're making business decisions, not just project decisions. I'm not saying that project management is an advanced career beyond program management. I'm not saying it's an advanced career beyond project management, but it's much closer to business. And if you like that, it'll actually help you. You know, adopting program management will help you. Now, it's going to take a lot of business acumen, and it's going to take a lot of adoption of how business, and especially your business, does work and makes decisions. But with that in mind, it does open a lot of interesting doors. Companies that that understand that value have a formal approach, and they have job titles called program managers. Okay, still have time, and if you have more questions, I'm here for you. This is my job, not just doing project management work, but helping people understand and integrate best methods for projects and project management. Yeah. Whenever you meet a project manager who's been a project manager for 20 to 25 years, ask them out for dinner because they have the best war stories. Like I said, saying stupid things in front of the CFO or the CTO or the CIO and have it just transition their approach. And because they did that, you're no longer a project manager reporting into an organization. You're a project manager reporting to a VP or reporting to a CXO. More and more we're seeing this too. Not just senior admins reporting into CXOs, but program and project managers who are running the pet projects of these executive leaders. Any more questions? Once again, thank you to Easy Certifications for allowing me this time. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and the questions. All questions are great. I really appreciate interaction. It makes these much more lively and much more engaging. I assume it's that way for you as well. We're always here. Ask us. It's not just getting a credential. It's not just training. It's setting yourself on a conscious path, you know, gathering the data, using information to make an informed decision on the next step in your career. I found project management to be engaging and fun and so valuable in so many ways. Look us up, ask questions, and thank you all very much for the time. Have a good one, guys. Hope to see you in classes in the future.